Et les derniers manifestants qui refusent de partir, on entend aussi...
Oui, le baguette's on fire. That's right. France is on fire. Le baguettes are on fire. People riot. Oui. Mon penchant.
Tout le monde déteste la police, des charges effectuées de manière
des
très
charges
régulière, toutes les 5 minutes par la police pour évacuer donc ces derniers manifestants qui restent sur cette place. Mais pour l'instant, eh bien, il en reste encore plus.
I mean, the thing is, like, you sound Quebecois. Well, I do hang out with a fucking Quebecer a little too much, so maybe that's why my accent is le busted, not very nice. You know, omelette du fromage, garçon. Oui. Anyway, they're throwing Molotov baguettes. Yeah. I'm French. Situation is tense as fuck, bro. When is the situation in France not tense as fuck? Yeah, which, by the way, Macron is actually pushing this bill through with the pension thing. Is pushing through the pension thing without like any National Assembly whatsoever. So pretty cool. There's like trash piling up over the course of the past week. What does the bill do again? The bill's doing what like South Korea tried to do as well, which is to raise the retirement age. That's why it's happening. Can you explain why these riots are happening? Well, the riots are happening because they're French. And they always riot. And it's not a bad thing, by the way. Like, I know that sounds almost like we're making fun of the French, but like honestly, as much as I make fun of the French, at least they fucking get angry and do something about it when their government does anything. But yeah, in France, the retirement age is 62. Macron has been talking about increase the retirement age to 64, 2 extra years of work. Oui. In a neoliberal society, you need to do this. Does it work if you're always rioting? I mean, it usually does work, so. Macron was elected to block fascism. We got fascism. I mean, Macron is literally the definition of, like, not to get too Stalinist here, but, like, Big Homie is a social fascist. Like, he's just, like, slightly less overtly racist than Le Pen, right? And not running on, like, the overt racism. But also, still pretty fucking authoritarian. I mean, this shit is like authoritarian as hell. So. It worked for them very well. They tortured a city into submission. Yeah. Anyway, he's more of a pocket homie than a big homie. There are 2 chambers in the French parliament. One of them, not directly elected one, approved the bill, and now Macron is trying to pass it without getting it approved by the other chamber, which is directly elected by the French people. Yeah. There was a study years ago that found centrists were the most anti-democratic group, even more than the far right. Oh, yeah, I remember that. Macron is using 49.3 to pass this bill without the vote. Without the vote, and the only goal is to provoke riots in order for us to enforce new security laws. It's a lose-lose situation for us. Yeah. Most European rights are social nationalists, unlike the very pro-capital American right. Yeah. Macron is basically the minister of exterior, but when you have the minister of the interior, you also have to look at what? I mean, ultimately, it gives us cool footage, I think. That's pretty much it. But you know what? Let's get fucking started. Let's get started on a little bit of anti-French racism. You know what I mean? Even though, like, much love and support to all the Frenchies out there doing their very best to push back against the same kind of authoritarian power structures that very firmly exist within the neoliberal, supposedly democratic association as well.
government will push through its landmark and unpopular pension reforms without a vote by MPs. For weeks now, unions have led protests against the...
Bro, Ludwig literally, like, we get it, bro, you're white, but, like, he does the 23andMe for everything. You know what I mean? You know how, like, a lot of white guys will do 23andMe and be like, oh, I have, like, 2% Nigerian in me. Or, like, or, like, they'll be like, oh, I'm actually Native American, right? Ludwig does that for every white race out there. Like, every white ethnicity out there. He's like, I'm French, I'm Swedish, I'm German, like, I've heard this motherfucker claim everything, dude. Irish, English. Straight up. Like, I've heard him claim everything, dude. Sos mon bites. What the fuck? I don't even know what this is. His name is Ludwig. What do you expect? No, it's just like, pick one, dude. Pick one. Suck my dick. Is that what he's saying? Nique la police. That's all I know. Okay, that's all I got. Bite. Anyway, pick a fucking lane and stick to it, motherfucker. Okay. Nique la police. I only know that from La Haine. Ludwig is very bad at French. It's so funny. Brother, he's very bad at English and he studied it, okay? So, you know, I guess you could blame Arizona for that one. But, like, the French one, it makes sense. Don't be using my mother tongue. I'm kissing your mother's tongue. Fucking got him, dude. See you tomorrow, by the way. Okay, but let's get started.
Bill that would raise the French retirement age to 64. Indeed, about 2/3 of French people are opposed to the plans.
Oh, good thing. Hey, by the way, I mean, guys, under neoliberal capitalist democracies, undemocratic things would never happen, like when the 2/3 of the population are expressly against this new provision, right? They would never push that through in undemocratic ways, right? Or, like, for example, in the United States of America, if, like, 2/3 of the country think that, like, Roe v. Wade should remain the law of the land, and then the Supreme Court justices would probably consider that to be a super precedent, implying that they'll never surely overturn that decision. They would never do that, right? They would never, ever do that in a million years. Oh, wait, that's right. They do that all the fucking time. That's crazy. And there's, like, a semblance of what you would consider to be a general strike, basically, what's going on in France right now. It's pretty good. Good stuff. Doesn't matter. You know? This is how democracies operate. You know?
But this afternoon, the Prime Minister, Elizabeth Bourne, said the government doesn't have the numbers it needs to pass the vote in Parliament, so it will force through the legislation anyway. Take a listen.
That's always good.
Today, we are faced with uncertainty that hinges on a few votes. We cannot take the risk of 175 hours of parliamentary debate collapsing. On the basis of Article 49(3) of the Constitution, I engage the responsibility of my government on the pension reform bill.
Well, already then, significant anger in Parliament following that statement by Elizabeth Bourne. Just have a listen to the spontaneous reaction by MPs a short while ago.
Madame, s'il vous plaît.
S'il vous plaît. And if you're wondering how France gets to fucking go up in arms like this every time they try to do this sort of thing, like when they increase pension from 62 to 64, that's because they have viable unions. Now, if you look at the actual rate of unionization in France, you would see a fraction of the entire labor force, but collective bargaining agreements actually end up over-encompassing 98% of the entire labor force in the country. So, once again, not only do they have a long history of protests, they also have, they also have a real mechanism of pushback.
Quite a moment there in the National Assembly this afternoon. MPs singing the national anthem, and not long afterwards, Marine Le Pen, the leader of the far-right National Rally Party, announcing that she will be filing a motion of no confidence.
That's so sick. That's so sick. I love allowing the fucking Nazi party just an opportunity to make themselves look like they're the real pro-labor party. It's
in the
so
government
sick.
In response to its plans to force through this legislation. Let's go live then to the National Assembly. Claire Pacquelin is there. She's been watching all of this drama unfold today. Claire, just bring us up to speed. Marine Le Pen saying a motion of no confidence is to be filed. How big of a deal is that?
No, it's awesome. I love, dude. Neoliberal centrists are so fucking good. They're so good. They definitely are the best way to prevent fascism from seeping in. You know what I mean? Definitely, totally. So glad. It's just like, it's so apparent that the very same bottleneck that the Democratic Party is in stopping the country from moving further left is the exact same thing that Macron is doing, okay? Centrists in Europe are way more occupied with stopping any kind of revolutionary momentum, any kind of trade unionist momentum, any kind of leftist momentum. They are way more preoccupied with that as they sell themselves as the only way to stop fascism from, rearing its ugly head. But it never works out that way.
Well, I've just been speaking to some members of Parliament trying to get a picture of what things are going to look like over the next few days. Marine Le Pen, as we said, is planning to file a motion of no confidence, but she's not the only one. Left-wing MPs will be doing the same, and I understand that early next week, whichever motion of no confidence has the most backers, well, that will be the one that will actually be debated on in Parliament. This is a risky...
Is the bill adding or removing a pension? No, dude. The pension exists. They're just increasing the retirement age, adding 2 additional years to the retirement age. The retirement age in France currently. So let me just start from the top one more time, okay? For the Americans in the chat, there's a concept called pensions, okay, in other countries where when you retire, it's kind of like Social Security, but like at least a little bit more livable than what Social Security looks like. Okay, so when you retire, you get money from either your place of work or from the government, right? Now, the retirement age in France is 62. That's the actual retirement age. The retirement age in America there is no retirement age, really. But the retirement age in the United States of America, which doesn't really fucking mean anything, is the full retirement age is 66 if you were born between 1943 to 1954. The full retirement age increases gradually if you were born from 1955 to 1960 until it reaches 67. For anyone born in 1960 or later, full retirement benefits are payable at the age of 67. This is for the United States of America. For those of you who don't know, this is from the Social Security Administration's very own website. Okay, there it is. In France, it's currently 62. They want to raise it to 60. They want to raise it to 64. Okay? Wait, what the fuck? That's why all these people are freaking the fuck out.
Time for Elisabeth Borne, the French Prime Minister. It's a risky position she has found herself in. Many opposition members of Parliament will be seeing this 49.3 mechanism, the use of it, as a provocation. It's fired them up. It really has. We are, though, in a similar position as we...
What does raising it do? It means that people have to work 2 extra years before the government pays them. Like, before anybody pays them a pension. It cheapens it. I mean, it's cost effective if you're worried about your social security apparatus falling apart. That's what it is. It's also a terrifying precedent to set, but, that's not even a thing. 30% of poor people in France die before 64. Nice. There you go. That's also another cost-effective, cost-saving measure. What do you think about the argument that Macron is doing this to prevent France from going bankrupt and putting the burden on those who can take it better? Sounds like BS to me. It's just that, when you are a government, you have plenty of opportunities to raise your coffers, raise funds, right? The problem is, in the Western world, okay, in most instances, it's unimaginable to assume that you would ever tax the wealthy or tax corporations at a higher rate. So that's precisely the problem. They don't do that. They'll instead tax gas, or they'll tax, they'll use regressive taxes that end up harming the working poor. They'll up the sales tax or things of that nature. KDV in Turkey is the equivalent. What would it be called? What is it called in English? Fuck, I can't believe I'm forgetting it now. It's what Andrew Yang pushed for as well. He wanted to do that. The VAT, the value added tax. Yes, the value added tax. So, that's kind of what the only effective funding mechanisms are, or the passable funding mechanisms are in a country like France, or in many of the Western neoliberal capitalist nations. It's unimaginable to scare capital by increasing their taxes in a meaningful capacity, because, hey, capital flight will occur, even though there's no demonstration of capital flight thus far. Also, one effective mechanism to push back against capital flight, as I've said time and time again, is to tell them that if you evade taxes, then you don't get to actually enter the French market. You don't get to actually enter the American market. Put a fucking Chinese-style vice grip on that shit. You know what I mean? That's what I would do. That's what I would advocate for. Oh, you don't want to pay taxes in America? Well, sorry, then you're not going to fucking take advantage of our pigs, okay? Our fucking fat slob pigs that buy all of your shit. We're not buying it no longer. We're not allowing you to come into the country and sell goods. It's just a threat, but I think it would be a very viable one, and yet for some reason nobody ever considers that at all. No one ever considers it.
Were before, it's those right-wing Les Républicains party members who are being courted now. It's their votes who count. It's worth remembering that their presidential candidate last year, Valérie Pécresse, she campaigned to raise the retirement age. But this time round, some of them plan to back the reform, and others just felt that they couldn't back Emmanuel Macron and his government. Some of them joined criticism.
The U.S. does not have a value-added tax, but each individual state has different forms of sales tax. But no, we do not have a federal all-encompassing value-added tax. There's no VAT in the United States. It's supposed to be more progressive, even though it's it doesn't really work that way. Fun shit, boys. Fun shit. But of course, because the French are very open and have a long and otherwise very fun history of revolting against these sorts of things, they are up in arms and burning the fucking town down a little bit, which I like.
Wing saying that the bill was unfair, but it's their votes. It could come down to a handful of votes. It's their votes which will be courted over the next few days ahead of that likely motion of no confidence next week.
And Claire, take us then to next week if you can. The vote of confidence happens. Let's assume the government loses the vote. What happens then?
Well, the person who's really in the firing line is Elisabeth Borne, the Prime Minister. When she came in last year, this really was the...
It's wild to me that, what is the French left non-existent? What happened? What happened to the French left? Why are they not talking about Mélenchon at all? I have seen zero coverage of his name being mentioned. Zero. What the fuck's going on there? No, don't KW the left. Jean-Luc Mélenchon actually had a pretty solid, originally had a solid opportunity, which, you know, it's fallen apart now, but the National Council for Pensions has calculated that our current pension system is fine economically speaking, so Macron's argument doesn't even work. He's not a government representative anymore. No, but I'm saying, like, Mélenchon led his party into almost seizing fucking victory in one of the more successful leftist movements in the country. There is still a very viable leftist movement in France, and yet they're making it seem like a lot of the people that are pushing back against this is just like right wing. It's Le Pen. I work for the LFI party.
The big reform that she needed to get enough votes for in Parliament, and she hasn't managed to do that. She wasn't able to bring enough of those right-wing Les Républicains party members on board. So really the 49.3 mechanism for her feels like a bit of a failure. That said, there's also the trade unions. They're not backing away easily either. The dustbin collectors in Paris are going to continue their strike until next Monday at least. And we know that the trade unions will really see the 49.3 mechanism as a trigger for more strikes, more actions, which they haven't yet specified, but I'm sure we'll find out very, very soon. More actions pretty much means more disruption here in France.
Claire Paquelin live at the National Assembly. Thank you very much indeed.
I just want to bring you the latest pictures from Paris, where, of course, we've been telling you that there have been protests this evening after French President Emmanuel Macron used a special procedure to push through controversial bill to raise the retirement age. Look at those pictures on your screen now. Protesters seem to have set fire to...
Dude, they brought up trade unionists at the end of that fucking conversation. Like, who the fuck is working the trash? Who's working in sanitation? Who's working in transportation? Like, how do you think there was a level of organizing there that caused trash bags to be fucking piled up everywhere? That organizing did not come from the far right, okay? That organizing did not come from the fascists. How the fuck do you just mention the trade unionists literally at the very end of the conversation? It's like they make it seem as though it is a fucking afterthought. It blows my mind. Macron is married to his old high school teacher. Wow, it's fucked up. You just don't want love to thrive. I see how it is. It has to be deliberate, right? Yeah, problematic age gap galore with fucking with respect to Macron and his older lady friend / teacher at school that he ended up marrying. Trade unionists are a left-wing thing for America's Lamau. Most of the workers are unionized, not a political thing at all. It's pretty much assumed. Yes, but you are failing to recognize, if you don't, I don't know if you don't see this or not, but when the media makes it seem as though the organizational effort that's coming from leftists or trade unionists, which is like an anti-capitalist concept to a certain degree, when they don't fucking mention that, that is by design. They're doing it at the behest of capital. They're doing it as a defensive measure. Because this is centrist media trying to frame this as a far-right versus centrist in order to manufacture consent for the cutting of benefits. There's a major protest outside the parliament right now led by the left in France. They are going to be tabling a no-confidence vote themselves, and it will probably be the one that is voted on. But when you look at the fucking situation on the goddamn ground, or when you look at the situation that's being covered in the media, it's very different. Like, I heard they're rioting because at the top of the hour there's a 3-minute ad break. And if they no longer want to see those ads, they don't even know. All they need to do is subscribe, which they can do for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime by connecting their Amazon Prime account to the Twitch Prime to get the Twitch Prime and use it here. Ha ha ha! You can also get the gifted sub. That is right. If you are lucky, you can get the gifted sub. Use it on your favorite streamer. Hopefully that's me. Ha ha ha! Your favorite French streamer. Use the 3-minute ad break now. Anyway, by the way, the French news is neoliberal as fuck. Every time I go back to visit family, the media neoliberal rhetoric and propaganda gets worse and worse. Yeah, I mean, hon 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 is the laziest French accent. Nobody says that. Bro, you think I give a fuck? My man said it's so lazy. Okay. Munch deux for 420 and 1 sandwich, please. Thank you for the 10 gifted subs together, allowing 10 people to no longer say the as at the top of the hour. Okay. Sakura Gore, thank you for the 10 gifted subs. Oui, oui. All right, let's get back to it.
Cars there. There looks like tear gas is being used on the streets of Paris as well. Of course, we've seen that before. A lot of protesters on the streets of Paris there. The move, of course, triggered protests within Parliament too, with some politicians singing the French national anthem, holding placards saying no to 64 years today. The government is arguing the retirement age must go up to make sure the pension system doesn't go bust. The measure has caused widespread protests over recent months. And tonight, these scenes, the very latest from Paris, you can see that is Place de la Concorde with the needle there from Egypt in the middle. Police, they're in riot gear with water cannon. They seem to be charging towards protesters, and we saw on the streets of Paris there protesters battling the police, battling them as they fire tear gas at them, setting fire to what looked like a car. I couldn't really quite tell what they'd set fire to, but clearly hundreds of police officers and protesters on the streets of Paris tonight.
Out of California, where tens of
it would just be a massacre in America. I mean, they don't really fucking... Americans don't get rowdy like that. You know what I mean? They just don't. Shit is getting tense currently on the De la Concorde. Place de la Concorde. These are sites that we are very familiar with here in the United States of America. Look at all the Antifa. Except the French police pretty much do nothing. I mean, in comparison to American police, yes, they pretty much do nothing. But they still do a lot. What do you mean? They definitely still fucking tear gas you. They also use high pressure water cannons in a lot of European countries. What you gotta remember though is that, like, yes, as I've said before, time and time again, I will repeat myself. In civilized countries, you could kind of fight back a little bit. You can tell if a country is more civilized if you can like find footage of people being able to like pounce on cops every now and then, which is such a foreign concept for Americans that like when I mentioned this, this was probably one of my most hated takes of all time. Okay. One of my most hated takes of all time from Americans was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, what do you mean? Like, you should be able to pounce on cops? Like, no, there is a use of force restriction that does not exist in the United States of America. Okay? That means that the playing field is a little bit more even, which I think is the adequate thing, is the right thing. That's it. You should not be fearful of getting mag dumped or having less than lethal or, less lethal, let's be real, rounds fired directly at your head from close distance that can like gouge your fucking eye out. Like, yeah, you should be able to definitely engage in self-defense. You can never do that in America. And when you even mention that, people will take it in the worst way possible and go fucking crazy over it.